Hello, let's carry on with Washed Up. I hope that your families were able to get out and vote and that you were paying attention to the outcomes as well. It'll be a while before we have an official result, but we have preliminary, which means kind of like before. We have preliminary results, which might tell us the answer. But just like in 2016, we thought it was going to be one person who won and somebody else won. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, let's carry on with Washed Up. We're going to read the second half of chapter 2. But because we were off for such a long time because of Election Day, I'd like to do just a quick review of what we've read so far. So, who do we have? We have three families. All right, three families. Yes, the Walpoles, the Lews, and make sure I have my apostrophes, and the Garcias. We also have Berry Blue. I think it was Berry. I'll go back and change that if it's not. Actually, I have it up right here. Berry, Berr. Sometimes Berry is spelled Barry too. All right. We have the Walpoles. They have three people in their family. The Lus, they have four people in their family, and the Garcias have two people in their family. What are they doing? They are on a reality show called Washed Up, where they have to survive on an island. And I'm going to put that each family has been dropped off at a different location. All right. That's important because they don't all have the same advantages. Where are they? They're on a remote island. So I'm going to put a remote tropical island. That just kind of, we don't know for sure where it is. It wasn't told to us. But remote just kind of means out all alone. And then what's happening? They are competing to survive for 3 weeks on this island. And do you remember what the prizes are? There was definitely for money and book deals. So it means they would get a book written after them about their experiences. So that's kind of what we have. I'm also going to walk through the pages just real quick to pick up any smaller details that we may have missed in the who, what, where, and what's happening. And then we will finish reading chapter 2 today. So, okay, I'll come back to the vocabulary words once we've made it to our page. So it starts off with the Lus getting dropped off. They were brought in by a helicopter, and they are with Berry Blue. She's the host of the show. It kind of looks like she's part of a news team because there's a number on there, but it's probably just the TV station that it's from. So the Lus, there are Mr. Lu, Mrs. Lu, and Shen, and I'm forgetting the other one's name. I see Shen there. Maybe the sibling's name is on this page. Wow, I am struggling to find it. Let me go back to this page because now I just have to find it. May, there it is, right there, right in front of my face. May and Shen are the kids, and so they're gonna be dropped off from the helicopter, and then we later learn that they're dropped off on the mountain, which is probably why they're put in the helicopter, and then we learn that Mrs. Lu is pretty obsessed with Berry Blue. She's so famous, right? But then they start to talk about the two other families, the Walpoles and the Garcios. Garcias. Berry Blue does tell us that they'll be in 3 different environments, so 3 different places, and that they will be given survival kits, one with a mosquito net, others with a length of rope, and then there are tarps, matches, and knives for everyone. So not everybody's going to get equal supplies either. Then we meet she carries on saying what they'll be doing, but there's another great picture of the island. You can see the helicopter. They're in the helicopter that we know, and they're being taken to the mountain. And then we meet the Walpoles, and the Walpoles consist of Mrs. Walpole, Mr. Walpole, and Oliver. And they are, how do we say, not prepared, right? They are not prepared for this adventure at all. Mrs. Walpole is obsessed with the sun and the sea, and she's excited about the beach. And even Oliver tells us that his parents and him are not quite ready because they're used to fancy hotels with room service and pillows and towels and all the fancy stuff, right? And that's definitely not what's going to be on this island. So even Oliver's face there shows a bit of concern for his family. And then I believe we meet the Garcias. There are only 2 Garcias, Mr. Garcia and Gabriela. They are taken. Oh, I forgot to say, the Walpoles are dropped off on the beach, but then they are taken. They walk themselves into the rainforest or the jungle. I know that those are 2 different things, but they use them interchangeably. And then the Garcias are taken in by boat to the mangrove forest. And we talked about mangrove trees and how their roots are exposed when the tide is low, when the water is low. And then when the tide comes in, the water raises and it covers those up. And Gabriela is really quick to say that the tide is going to come soon, so they need to get to higher ground. Then, as we carry on, we see that the Loos are a bit obsessed, especially the adults are a bit obsessed with the cameras. Hey, wave to the kiss the camera. That's what he says. Now blow a kiss to the camera. But Shen and May are a little more concerned about finding a place where they can have a fire and a shelter, and they really can't do that on the side of a mountain. I mean, they probably could. It just isn't ideal for it. And then we go back to the Walpoles, and Oliver sees a scorpion and hides it from his mom. And then Berry Blue tells us, ooh, things are going to get better, or are they going to get worse? And then at the beginning of chapter 2, we have Mrs. Walpole here. She is something else with that blood-curdling cry of that scream because of a spider. They are definitely not cut well to this. And then there was the whole argument about the matches. His mom had the matches, and they got wet when she was wading through the water. Remember, it was only knee deep, and she managed to get soaked. She practically drowned. And then Oliver starts to problem solve, and he thinks that maybe they can use part of these creepers to make some sort of shelter for them for the evening. And I believe that gets us to page... we do have this one right here. Mr. Garcia was walking through the water. You can see that they are almost waist deep in the water, and he sprained his ankle on something, and he is now kind of laid up. He's not doing so good, but he has to keep moving because there are going to be crocodiles in the mangroves when the tide comes up, and other things that are going to make it dangerous, like leeches and snakes. So Gabrielle is thinking maybe they should make some sort of shelter. I'm noticing a theme here. They should make some sort of shelter and try to stay warm with the palm fronds, which is like a big leaf from a palm tree. All right, now I believe, yes, we start here on page 24. I'm going to read to page 27, so just really 4 pages. The Loos weren't having it easy. Oh, hold on. Before I read, I would like you to listen for the word frugally. Frugally. Say that one out loud. It's a little fun to say. Frugally, windswept, and ingenious. So we have ingenious, windswept, and frugally. And we'll go through those after we're done reading. The Loos weren't having it easy either. There was only enough bread, cheese, and raisins to last one whole day if they ate frugally. The temperatures had dropped noticeably, and the wind whistled like a banshee. Mrs. Loo's teeth were chattering already. Look, warm, she stuttered, still sparing a frozen smile for the flying cameras. Mr. Loo's speech was slurred. No animal can survive this. The twins exchanged looks, early signs of hypothermia. They had to find shelter, and fast. Shen's thoughts were wandering again. How did animals survive in this windy wasteland of grass and rocks? Gadala baboons. Galata baboons, said May, reading Shen's thoughts as always. Didn't these primates of the Ethiopian highlands escape their wind-swept habitat by climbing down steep cliff faces at nightfall, roosting in ledges? The minutes were slipping away as fast as their body heat now, and Shen knew the cold, thin air was making it hard for him to think. Follow us, Shen cried to his parents. May was pulling the tarps out of their bags, her hands fumbling at the zipper. Shen had a plan now, but he needed a tree for this to work. There were no trees so far above the tree line. Could he use a rock, maybe, or three? An outcrop of 3 rocks. Now that would work. Dizzy now, Shen felt the wind stinging his eyes as he peered over the edge of the mountain to look at a narrow sill. Only a few feet down. It would do. It would have to. Now, isn't that ingenious? Barry Blue, in army fatigues now, was clapping. The Loos were tucked into 2 large tarp hammocks slung over the cliff, moored by rocks. Below them, a tiny ledge stood between them and nothing less. There's always a solution to every problem, Mary Blue said, cocking her head thoughtfully to one side. The Garcias were crawling into their palm leaf shelter, and the Walpoles were already inside what appeared to be a large cross frame made of creepers suspended above the ground. So safe, so sound, said Berry Blue, pretending to yawn and hugging her heart-shaped pillow. Good night. Oh, and sleep tight. All right, let's look for those words. Our first word was the word frugally, and it was on page 24. So let me pop back over to page 24. This is 26 and 27. So 24 is the first page that we read. And take a second there and look for the word frugally. I see it. It is here. It is describing the way that they ate. So think about that when I ask you what kind of word it is. It says there was only enough bread, cheese, and raisins to last one whole day if they ate frugally. So they have bread, cheese, and raisins, but not very much left. So they have to eat it frugally. What do you think that means that they have to eat it frugally? Well, it means that they have to eat it carefully, because if they eat it too fast, they're going to have nothing left. So they also have to save it. They can't waste it. Can't waste, because then when it's gone, it's gone. They won't have anything left. I said carefully, thrifty. So kind of saving. If you ever shopped at a thrift store, you're saving money, or sales stores, I suppose. Oops, wrong button. I said saving. Sparingly. So sparing it so that it's not all used at once. Not all used at once. I'll put down as well. Not wait. I said can't waste. Penny pinching. My grandma always used to say she was a penny pincher because she didn't like to spend a lot of money. I'll put that too. Not spending money. Now, they're not spending money in the story, but they are spending their food, right? I mean, they got to use their food to stay alive. And then I'll also put tight, because they need to keep things tight in order to keep these things. So while I'm drawing the black connecting lines, will you please think of some antonyms or opposites? These are all really great ones. Hopefully you were screaming some at the screen while I was recording and writing them down. All right, now some opposite words might be things like wasting, hoarding, like keeping it all to yourself, feasting, eating as much as you can, eating as much as you can. That's kind of a long one, but that's okay. We'll put it like that. And then let me see if I can think of another one. Too much. Spending. Those would all be great ones. Let me get my red pen and draw a line. Well, it's usually a box, but that one's going to be an odd shape. Pentagon, technically, because it's got 5 sides. And then we switch back over to my text. Now, remember I said this is describing how they are eating their food, like how much they're eating. If it's describing, it's going to be an adverb or an adjective. And here it's describing eating. Eating is a verb, and an adjective describes how, I'm sorry, an adjective describes a noun, and they are, let me go back to the text, make sure I say, they ate frugally. They're speaking of the bread, cheese, and raisins, and those are all nouns there. Okay, didn't want to confuse you. There is a base word. The base word is frugal, which just means to save. And I'll type that down in the bottom here. That's the only variation of that word. And then I need to use the word frugally in a sentence. So I'm going to say, I spent my money frugally, as not all in one, I was gonna say not all in one place, but if I'm spending my money frugally, it means I'm not spending it all, period. I spent my money frugally, saving some of it. So sometimes you have to go back and kind of fix your sentence to make it make more sense for the reader. So my money is what I'm spending frugally, so that's describing the noun there. All right, the next word was windswept, and that was on page 25. Should still be on page 24 and 25. And windswept is on the screen now. Take a second and look for it. Windswept is here, and it's describing the habitat. So habitat is a thing, so should be very similar to what we just had, right? It says, didn't these primates of the Ethiopian highlands escape their windswept habitat by climbing down steep cliff faces at nightfall, roosting on ledges? So windswept just literally means swept by wind. So I'll put that on here. Swept by wind, but what else does it mean? Well, it could definitely mean windy. And then think about what the wind does usually. It causes things to be cold or bitter. Sometimes we describe the cold as bitter. Blustery. We experience blustery winds when in Michigan, especially in the winter time. Blowing. Drafty. You ever feel air coming from underneath a door? It's a draft. Stormy. Dusty. Airy, like full of air, right? And then an older term would be brisk. And that kind of means just like cold wind. So while I'm drawing my connecting lines, think of some antonyms or opposites of windswept and all the other words that we have around windswept. So one of the quickest ones I see is that an opposite one would be warm or hot, calm, still, not blowing, Silent, because wind makes a lot of noise too. And maybe beautiful. I guess that's kind of an opinion, but it still works. Let me get my red pen out. And then, like I said, this is describing the habitat. Habitat is a thing, so it makes it an adjective. And up in the corner. And then windswept is its only variation here. So I'm going to, now windswept needs to describe an area that is swept by wind. So the wind swept prairie look like waves in the strong gusts. So if you've ever seen a prairie, it's tall grasses, and when they're pushed by the wind, it looks a lot like waves on the water. And then our last word was ingenious, and that was on page 26. So I need to go switch pages here. Page 26 is the first one. So look for the word ingenious. Oh, this one shouldn't be too hard. Now she says, Berry Blue says, now isn't that ingenious? She's talking about the kind of hammocks that the loos have in their kind of, if you look at this right here, it's hard to tell, but it looks like they're covered a little bit by the rocks. So maybe the wind wouldn't be so bad like that. And they had that rope. So that was good. Those kids did a really nice job, right? So ingenious. Oh, let me go back and read it. It says, now, isn't that ingenious? Now, they had to get creative, right? The kids had to get creative to create something that was safe and was going to keep them out of the wind. So we have creative. Clever would work too. Crafty. And then gifted. Ingenious kind of has the base word of genius in it, right? Ingenious is somebody who's really smart. And sometimes we call people who are ridiculously smart gifted people. I'll put smart on there. Artistic also works. And skillful, having lots of skills. Resourceful, using what you have to help, in this situation, help survive. Imaginative. Gotta move that one over. Imaginative. Intelligent. And I already have smart, so I'll put brilliant. Right, somebody who is very smart is brilliant. Now, please think of some antonyms while I draw my connecting lines, some opposites of ingenious, some opposites of what we already have here. And one thing that comes to mind right away is dull and not smart, not creative, boring, lazy, and probably unmotivated. Somebody who is unmotivated isn't going to solve the problem, right? I guess unmotivated and lazy are very similar. But I did look for antonyms, and those antonyms should be synonyms, right? Mind blow, right? Okay, next we have ingenious. We have the base word of genius, and it's spelled wrong, but it's spelled differently because it's embedded in a word. But we have, there we go. And then this is describing their act. Now, their act is a thing. It's kind of an idea. Well, they're describing the kid's ideas. Now, isn't that ingenious? These hammocks are ingenious. The idea of them. And remember, an idea is a noun. So let me put this describing the noun. So it's, again, an adjective. 3 adjectives today, and then I need to use it in a sentence. It was ingenious of me to think of a solution to littering. It's a big problem that our world has, so why not think of a solution, right? And then I'll make that nice and big. So it'll be your task to come up with a sentence for each of these words. Please make sure to do that on your seesaw. Now, I want to talk a little bit about theme. So a theme is what the author wants you to know. What are some themes of these famous stories? Now, notice that I used 2 that we've already read, but one that you should know very, very well is the story of the 3 little pigs. The idea that the big bad wolf is coming to town and he's going to huff and puff and blow the pigs' houses down, and the pigs make a house out of 3 different things. And what are those 3 different things? You can see them in the picture there. Well, the first one has sticks. He builds his out of sticks. The second one has bricks, but he was actually the third one. And the other one builds his out of straw. So 2 of those things are not very strong. So the whole idea is that it's wise to take your time and do something properly. And in this case, it saved the last pig's life because his brothers got eaten by the big bad wolf. Now, when we think about Night of the Spadefoot Toad, it was all about Ben, who was moving to a new town, a new state. And this one had quite a few themes, but the themes here were it's important to take care of nature and to believe in your friends, right? I'm not going to say believe in your friends, and that friendship is important. Most of that story, he didn't want to be friends with Ryan, but then he ended up doing it. And then in Shells, we have Michael, who is living with his Aunt Esther. And here, the whole story is about how important family is. So, family is one of the most important things. And they end up bonding over the shells, over the hermit crabs, the shells that the hermit crabs need to use. So using that, I want to talk about the theme of two sections of the story. And if you listen well, you're going to get the answers to your seesaw post. So let's look at these 2 sections. They're both from page 24, I believe, on the left here. Well, one's from 24 and one's from 25. And I want to kind of gather the theme here. So the first one says on the left, Mrs. Lou's teeth were chattering already. Look, warm, she stuttered, still sparing a frozen smile for the flying cameras. Mr. Lou's speech was slurred. No animal can survive this. And so the parents' behavior here, we're kind of in an emergency, right? So what can you tell me? What is the author trying to tell us about the adults here in this emergency? And the theme is adults are not always good in emergencies. And that might even be true for some of our lives. Sometimes it's just hard to know exactly what to do and when to do it. Emergencies make us act in different ways, and for the Lou's, the parents are not doing a very great job, right? Mrs. Lou is still obsessed with the cameras and obsessed with the TV, and Mr. Lou is not doing very good. He's slurring his speech, which we later read is the onset of hypothermia, when you get really cold. The twins exchanged looks, early signs of hypothermia for their dad. So they have to get somewhere warm and quick. All right. Let's look at the next one. Oops, wrong one. Shen had a plan now, but he needed a tree for this to work, and there were no trees so far above the tree line. Could he use a rock, maybe, or three, an outcrop of three rocks? Now that would work. Dizzy now, Shen felt the wind stinging his eyes as he peered over the edge of the mountain to look at a narrow sill only a few feet down. It would do. It would have to. So, what's this one all about? It's all about Shen, right? Who is Shen? Well, he's Mr. and Mrs. Lu's son. Um, and what is he doing? Well, it's right there in the very beginning. Let me switch to my highlighter. He has a plan. So, what this is telling us is that sometimes children are smarter people, are smarter than some people. I can't type right now. Give them credit for. Have you ever had a really good idea, or you really wanted to say something that you thought mattered, but adults just wouldn't listen? The author here is saying that it is true that sometimes children do have better ideas than the parents. And in this case, Shen basically saved his dad's life, right? By putting him in a spot where he wasn't going to get so much wind and cold. So, a theme is what the author wants you to know. And those are the themes. So, we have the themes of the three books that we know pretty well, and then taking in a theme out of a part of the book here. So, themes can be overall, or it can be part of a chapter, or even just part of a paragraph. All right, this is the last thing now. We need to write from Mr. Lu's perspective. It says write a paragraph, that's 3 to 5 sentences, from Mr. Lu's perspective. That means pretend to be Mr. Lu. Respond to being on the cold mountain. So we already know from this paragraph here that his speech is slurred and he might have the onset of hypothermia. He's cold based on the picture because he's all huddled up like that with Mrs. Lu, and the kids are down over there. So we need to write a paragraph, like if there were going to be another paragraph in here, but it's Mr. Lu speaking. We have to pretend to be Mr. Lu. So I'm going to start with some quotes because he's going to be speaking. And I'm going to make sure my text box is big enough. So 3 to 5 sentences. And I need to be creative here. So he was just slurring his words about the no animals can survive. So, you know, they're pretty worried about how they look on TV. So I'm going to talk about I wish I would have brought my winter jacket, Mr. Lu said. He wasn't fully prepared when he packed his bag for this trip. Now, I need to, because the next step is that Shen is going to come up with the ideas. So we need to kind of have a thought process that leads us to that. I sure hope, and I still need to be stuttering because he's cold. Hope that we will survive. Oh man, it's kind of hard to talk in, to type in and stutter. So I wish I would have brought my winter jacket, Mr. Lu. I'm going to put, instead of said, stuttered. He wasn't fully prepared when he packed his bag for his trip. I sure hope that we will survive. So I have 3 sentences there, and I think that's all I need because it's just adding to what Mr. Lou is experiencing, but it's Mr. Lou speaking because I pretended to be him. So you'll need to do that today. Please don't copy mine. That won't get you any points if you copy me. But I think you are all creative enough to do it on your own. So enjoy. Don't forget to do the seesaw post.